Imagine for a moment that you're surrounded by this invisible ocean. Not water, obviously, but information. Radio waves, TV, your Wi-Fi, cell phones, satellite data. I mean, all of it just swirling around us, carrying huge amounts of information. But what if we could instantly identify, each signal in that whole electromagnetic symphony? Pinpoint exactly what kind of signal it is, how it's sending data, maybe what it's for, all automatically, without us having to manually figure it out. Today in the deep dive, we're setting out to unravel a concept that really promises to revolutionize how we understand and manage this invisible radio frequency spectrum, Automatic Modulation Classification, AMC for short. Our goal is to unpack a truly groundbreaking approach to AMC. It uses the incredible power of deep learning, specifically a cutting-edge convolutional neural network, or CNN, architecture. And this isn't just some, obscure technical detail. It actually promises to transform our modern connected world. Our source for this deep dive is a pretty pioneering research paper that lays out this new deep learning method. We've gone through it, pulled out the most fascinating insights, the surprising bits, and the practical implications, all tailored for you. And why should you care about something that sounds as niche as classifying radio signals? Well, because this tech underpins so much of our daily lives. From making sure your smart home stuff connects okay, to enabling the next generation of wireless and even critical defense operations. It's not just a technical curiosity, it's actually a broad enabler for our modern interconnected lives. Let's get into it.
It's truly remarkable, isn't it, how much is happening in that invisible realm and how vital it is to understand. When we talk about automatic modulation classification, AMC, we're basically talking about identifying how information is encoded onto a radio wave. Think of it like this. Radio signals carry information by systematically changing a characteristic of a carrier wave.
Yeah.
Maybe its amplitude, its frequency, or its phase. That process, that's called modulation. So when a system does modulation classification, it's trying to figure out which specific method, or maybe combination of methods, was used to send the data. At its core, it's really a statistical challenge. Given a signal you've received, the system needs to decide which of a, let's say, predefined set of modulation types it belongs to. The critical problem, though, is that the signal we actually receive isn't the pure original transmission. A received wireless signal, let's call it YT, is this complex mix. It's the original noise-free info signal, XT, but it's passed through a dynamic channel, CT, and it's obscured by background noise, NT.
So the core problem is nailing down that original XT, when all we actually get is YT, which is already messed up by the channel, and CT, and that background noise. For someone listening, what's the biggest challenge those environmental factors like the channel and noise pose to even a really smart classifier?
That's exactly the issue. So CTT represents the time-varying impulse response of the channel. This covers all the complex stuff the signal goes through: buildings causing reflections, weather, messing with the signal strength, other obstructions. Things that change the signal before it even gets to the receiver. This leads to things like fading, where the signal strength just fluctuates wildly, and multipath, where bits of the signal arrive via different paths, causing echoes and interference. And then there's NT, that constant random static, usually modeled as additive white Gaussian noise or AWGN. It's just everywhere, electrical noise. The classifier has to somehow learn to filter out all that variable environmental chatter and distortion to figure out the original signal's modulation type. It's kind of like trying to hear a specific song playing on a really old, crackly radio in a big, echoey hall. The basic patterns are there, but all the interference makes it super hard to pick out. And to make all these complex math operations a bit more manageable, especially for computers, signals are typically represented in what's called the IQ format. That stands for in-phase I and quadrature Q components. These two basically describe the signal's instantaneous amplitude and phase, gives you a convenient orthogonal way to look at it, which simplifies how computers can process and analyze the signal's characteristics moment by moment. It's a very standard, very efficient way to handle these signals in digital systems.
Okay, that helps clarify how these signals are even, represented. So we're trying to figure out this hidden language of radio waves just by listening to the fuzzy, distorted version that actually reaches us. But why is this so important? I mean, beyond the technical coolness of it, why does AMC really matter to anyone who isn't, say, a radio engineer?
Oh, it's foundational. Absolutely foundational for so many parts of our modern world. The ability to automatically learn and label what's happening in the radio frequency spectrum is critical. For civilian stuff, think about managing our increasingly crowded wireless space. If your Wi-Fi keeps dropping or your smart home gadgets are flaky, AMC can help quickly identify what signal is causing that interference. Is it a faulty microwave? An unauthorized broadcaster? Just another Wi-Fi network blasting on the same channel? AMC helps pinpoint it. That means faster fixes, smoother operation. It's also essential for spotting radio faults in, say, industrial settings or critical infrastructure. A malfunctioning piece of gear could be spitting out bad signals, and AMC can flag that anomaly right away, preventing bigger problems. But maybe one of the most transformative civilian uses is dynamic spectrum access, or DSA. The radio spectrum is finite, right?
Yeah.
And it's getting incredibly crowded. More and more devices want bandwidth. DSA lets devices intelligently and autonomously share these limited resources. They adapt to available frequencies in real time. Imagine your phone automatically hopping to an unused frequency band to keep a strong connection, even in a packed stadium.
Ah, okay, so it finds the clear channels on its own.
Exactly. Or think about autonomous vehicles. They need super reliable communication, right? DSA helps ensure they can always find a clear channel, and AMC is absolutely key to making DSA work. It helps devices listen to the spectrum, figure out which frequencies are busy, and what kind of signal is using them. This is really central to the future of wireless, especially with 5G, cognitive radio, all that stuff.
And it sounds like this isn't just a new idea for us civilians. It actually has pretty deep roots in military and security applications, too.
Oh, absolutely. AMC was originally proposed for military use, and it's still strategically vital. On the battlefield, recognizing signal modulations lets you immediately identify adversary transmitters. That helps understand enemy comms, capabilities, movements, crucial for situational awareness. It's also needed for effective jamming. If you know exactly how the enemy is modulating their signals, you can design a much more targeted and disruptive countermeasure.
Makes sense. Hit them where it hurts.
Precisely. And of course, if you intercept enemy signals, knowing the modulation type is the very first step to decoding the message and getting intelligence. Beyond the military, regulatory bodies also lean heavily on AMC. They use it to ensure everyone's following the rules for spectrum use, not interfering with critical services like air traffic control, emergency comms, or licensed broadcasts.
So it's really about making sense of all that invisible chaos in the air, whether it's for better Wi-Fi, smarter cities, or national security. That's a huge range of applications. Now, before deep learning came along and started, changing everything, how did people traditionally tackle this really tough problem of classifying radio signals?
Well, historically, it was a very hands-on, very labor-intensive process, really relied on human experts. The old way, you could call it, heavily involved what are known as carefully handcrafted, specialized feature extractors for specific signal types. What that means is human experts, people with deep knowledge in signal processing, would meticulously analyze a particular signal. Then they design specific mathematical filters or algorithms. Their goal was to pull out unique characteristics or features that would reliably distinguish that signal type from others. This took significant human effort, a lot of ingenuity, for every single new signal type they encountered. And once they had those features, classification was done using either analytically derived decision boundaries, basically mathematical formulas based on the signal theory, or statistically learned decision boundaries, using statistical methods on the observed features to find patterns for telling them apart.
That sounds rigid, like a big hurdle in a world where wireless signals are constantly changing. So if that's the old way, how did deep learning really become the game changer here? How did it move beyond those expert-driven methods?
Yeah, it's a powerful contrast. While deep learning was absolutely transforming fields like image recognition, voice processing, natural language stuff, its direct application to wireless comms, especially for tasks like AMC, maybe took a little longer to really catch on widely. However, once researchers started digging in, its application gained immense popularity. Why? Because it showed extraordinary performance improvements, things that were simply impossible with the traditional handcrafted methods. The critical difference is that deep learning brings this whole new paradigm, a system that learns to identify signals not by being told exactly what unique feature to look for, but by observing massive amounts of data and automatically figuring out those features itself.
Ah, so it learns what to look for on its own.
Exactly. It's an end-to-end learning process.
That automatic feature extraction really does sound like the core power here. Instead of telling the computer, look for this specific wiggle, we just feed it the raw data and it figures out the best way to tell signals apart. So, practically speaking, how do you actually design one of these deep learning-based modulation classifiers? What are the main steps?
Generally, there are two main sort of interconnected steps when you're designing one of these. First is signal preprocessing. This is absolutely crucial because, like we said, raw signal data can be really messy, right? Because of the channel and noise. Techniques here include things like robust filtering to cut down noise, estimating and normalizing signal parameters like frequency, timing, power, just to ensure consistency, and critically, channel equalization. These techniques are applied to try and minimize or reduce those distorting effects of the channel, like fading or multipath. It's all about cleaning up and standardizing the input so the deep learning model gets the best possible data to learn from. Then, the second step is the classification algorithm itself. Traditionally, you might have likelihood-based methods, comparing likelihood ratios against a threshold to minimize errors, or feature-based approaches, where decisions are made based on specific predefined features.
What's revolutionary about the model in this paper, and deep learning for AMC in general, is that it also uses a feature-based process. But, and this is key, the features are extracted automatically by the different layers of the deep learning architecture. The network essentially learns what patterns within the signal are most important for telling modulation types apart, without any human needing to explicitly code those features.
That's a huge shift, yeah. Now, before the specific novel approach came along, what were some of the other deep learning attempts at AMC? How did they sort of pave the way for this current work? What did they teach us, or what challenges did they run into?
Right? It's important to see this isn't happening in a vacuum. Previous work definitely laid the groundwork and highlighted where innovation was needed. For instance, there was a pioneering system called VTCNN2. It used convolution and dense neural network layers for AMC. It was an early proof that deep learning could work here. But interestingly, it was noted that it didn't include pooling or regularization layers. Pooling, as we'll maybe discuss more, helps shrink the data representation, making things more efficient. And regularization is crucial for stopping overfitting,
Yeah.
where a model learns the training data too well, but then fails on new data.
Right, it memorizes instead of learns.
Yeah, exactly. So VTCNN2 was a big step, but it kind of pointed towards needing more robustness. Then another approach used artificial neural networks, ANNs, with different numbers of dense layers. It showed promise, but it needed extra pre-processing steps like specific feature extraction and pooling to really get good performance. This again sort of underlined the challenge of efficient automatic feature handling. The ANNs needed a lot of help from traditional methods to work well. Then came a CNN architecture that used convolution layers and two fully connected dense layers, but importantly included dropout, which is a common regularization technique. This showed a significant improvement in accuracy and speed. Clearly showed CNNs plus regularization were powerful. However, even the authors of that paper noted something crucial. Adding noise and more pooling layers could have made it more robust.
So they were already hinting at what this new paper focuses on.
Precisely. It directly foreshadows the innovations here, especially that strategic use of a noise layer. This earlier work basically said, okay, CNNs are great for this, but also pointed out what was still missing to really nail it.
So these earlier efforts were getting closer, figuring out the right kinds of building blocks, but kept highlighting the need for better ways to handle real-world noise and make the models generalize better. They were kind of pointing the way, saying, we need to toughen these models up.
Exactly right. And other research also explored different architectures like 7-stage CNNs, DenseNet, ResNet, even something called CLDNN, which added an LSTM layer for better accuracy, showed lots of exploration. All this background really highlights why the current paper's claim is so significant. It proposes a novel CNN-based architecture for AMC and explicitly claims to outperform the existing state-of-the-art CNN-based architectures. Genuinely building on that foundation, learning from past limitations, and adding some key innovations for better performance.
And for any deep learning model, the fuel, the foundation of its intelligence, is always the data, right? So what kind of data are we talking about here? How is it put together for this system to learn from?
You are spot on. The data set is everything. For this research, they used a really well-regarded benchmark data set called RadioML 2016.04.c. The great thing is, it's open source. You can actually go download it from deepsig.a datasets. This really helps the research community, lets others validate results, build on the work, ensures reproducibility. What makes RadioML 2016.04.c especially good is that it's designed with practical imperfections. These aren't perfectly clean signals. It includes realistic things like moderate local oscillator drift, that's common slight shift in frequency and fading, those signal strength fluctuations we mentioned. Training a model on these imperfections makes it way more robust for real-world use. And crucially, it includes signal samples at different labeled FNR, signal-to-noise ratio, increments. This lets researchers rigorously test how well the model performs under different noise levels, from really noisy signals to really clear ones.
Okay, so it's deliberately imperfect data designed to make the models more realistic and useful. How was this huge data set actually created? Was it just recorded off the air or simulated?
It was generated using a sophisticated simulation environment, but one designed to mimic real-world conditions very carefully. They used GNU radio, which is a powerful open-source toolkit widely used for software-defined radio work. They essentially built the signal generation process by combining different logical modules together within GNU radio. The process involved selecting base signals like voice for analog modulations, ASCII symbols for digital, then normalizing things like the symbol rate before applying the modulation. But the really crucial step was the channel simulation. They used GNU radio's dynamic channel model block. This thing is designed specifically to introduce all those real-world effects that mess with signals. It simulates a whole range of impairments: random center frequency offsets, sample rate offsets, that additive white Gaussian noise, AWGN, multipath effects where the signal bounces around, and fading. This really meticulous simulation process ensures the dataset is rich, diverse, and challenging. You get various modulation types across a wide range of SNRs, making it an excellent training ground for tough deep learning models.
Wow, that sounds like an incredibly thorough way to build a data set that truly reflects real-world challenges. What are the actual numbers we're talking about? How big is it? What's in it?
It's pretty substantial. We're talking 162,060 rows of data. Each row is categorized with 3 key pieces of info: the signal-to-noise ratio, SNR, the specific modulation type, and then the actual raw signal data. The SNR values cover a really wide range from a very noisy technical to 20 dB all the way up to a very clear plus 18 dB in steps of 2 dB. This allows for really fine-grained analysis of performance across noise levels, and it covers 11 different modulation types representing a good mix of common methods. 8 digital ones, the backbone of modern comms: BPSK, CPFSK, GFSK, PM4, QAM64, QAM16, QPSK, and APSK, and 3 analog types, still used quite a bit: AM-DSB, AM-SSB, and WBFM. Each individual signal sample in the dataset has a fixed length of 128 points, and the data itself is complex-valued inputs dimensions 2, 128. That 2 for that represents the I, N phase, and Q quadrature components we talked about. Then for proper training and testing, the data was carefully split up. About 90,753 samples for training the model, 30,895 for validation that's used during training to check progress and tune things, and then a completely separate set of 32,412 samples held back just for the final testing.
Okay, so a rigorous split to make sure the results are honest.
Exactly. Ensures the final accuracy really reflects performance on unseen data.
And when you actually visualize these signals, what do they look like, especially at different noise levels? Because I imagine seeing them helps understand the challenge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The paper includes visualizations like Figure 1, showing time domain plots of I and Q for different modulations, but specifically at a high SNR of 18 dB. And what's really interesting is that at high SNR, the fundamental differences among all the classes can be easily spotted. You can visually tell them apart. A BPSK signal might look like it's jumping between 2 points, while a QAM signal might show distinct clusters. They look quite different. But here's the challenge at low SNR: when the noise is dominant, it completely swamps those patterns. It becomes incredibly difficult to distinguish between different modulations just by looking. They all just look like a noisy mess. This really underscores why we need sophisticated automated systems like this. The human eye just can't do it reliably in noisy real-world conditions. It's pretty amazing that machine learning can find patterns in that apparent chaos.
That's a perfect illustration of the problem. Clear signal, easy to see. Noisy signal, looks like static. So let's get into the brain of this operation, the novel CNN architecture itself. How does this model actually process these signals and make its decisions? Can you walk us through it, maybe stage by stage?
Sure. So the proposed CNN architecture, the core innovation here, is designed specifically for AMC, and it's broken down into 6 distinct stages. Think of it like the signal taking a carefully engineered journey through different processing units. Stage 1 is about initial feature extraction and, importantly, early regularization. It starts with 0 padding, the input adding zeros around the edges. This just helps manage the signal shape for the convolution layers. Then comes the first convolution layer. This acts like a set of filters scanning the signal to pick out initial, low-level features. Think of it like finding basic edges or textures in the signal data. After that, a ReLU activation function introduces nonlinearity. This is crucial. It lets the model learn much more complex relationships than simple linear ones. And the stage finishes with a dropout layer. This is a key regularization trick. During training, it randomly drops out some neurons, forcing the network to learn more robust features and preventing it from just memorizing the training data.
Okay, so grab the signal, prep it, pull out the first basic features, and make sure it's actually learning, not just memorizing. Got it.
Exactly. Then we move to stage 2. This is all about feature condensation using pooling, specifically an average pooling 2D layer. Its main job is to reduce the training parameter and extract the essential features. Pooling summarizes features in regions. Average pooling calculates the average value in a window. This shrinks the data size, reduces computation, and makes the model a bit more robust to small variations in feature location. It's like getting the gist of the features in an area. Stage 3 takes these condensed features and goes for deeper learning, again with regularization. It starts with zero padding. Then a second convolution layer learns more complex, abstract features from the output of the pooling layer. Again, ReLU for nonlinearity, and another dropout layer to keep fighting over fitting. Following that is stage 4, going even deeper. Zero padding again, then a third convolution layer. This extracts even more abstract features, the kind needed to tell apart really subtle modulation differences, especially when things are noisy. And, you guessed it, ReLU and another dropout layer follow.
So it's like this progressive refinement. Each convolution stage builds on the last, finding more and more complex patterns, while dropout keeps it honest at each step. It's like zooming in, filtering, summarizing, repeat.
Precisely, a multi-scale approach. Then we have stage 5. This prepares the features for the final classification and includes a really key innovation. 2 layers here. First, a flatten layer. This just takes the multidimensional output from all the convolution pooling stages and squashes it into one long single vector. This is needed for the standard fully connected layers that come next. But here's the really interesting part, a central piece of this paper. The second layer in stage 5 is a Gaussian noise layer. This is highlighted as a crucial part of this entire model. It acts as another powerful regularization layer.
Wait, adding noise? Doesn't that seem counterintuitive, especially if the input signal is already noisy?
It does sound weird at first, but it's a very effective technique. Its purpose is manifold. It improves the model's robustness, stops it being overly sensitive to tiny input fluctuations. It further reduces overfitting by forcing the model to learn more general patterns. It helps eliminate that memorization effect we talked about. Now, importantly, research shows it can actually speed up learning and convergence. The model gets better, faster. It's like deliberately making the training a bit harder to make the final model stronger and more adaptable.
A Gaussian noise layer inside the network. That's really fascinating. So you're not adding noise to the input signal, but injecting controlled static during training into the network's internal workings. And that makes it smarter. That definitely goes against intuition.
It does. But it's a well-established technique in deep learning now. Think of it like targeted stress training for the network. By adding this small amount of random noise during training to the signals flowing between layers, it forces the network not to rely too heavily on any single pathway or a specific value. It makes the model inherently more robust to the kind of variations and imperfections it will see in real-world signals. It's a form of data augmentation that pushes the network to learn a broader, more generalized understanding. Making training harder leads to better performance later. Okay, so after that innovative noise layer, we finally arrive at stage 6, the decision maker. This is where the classification happens. It consists of 4 fully stacked hidden layers. These are dense, fully connected layers. They progressively narrow down the possibilities. 124 nodes, then 256, then 64, and finally 11 nodes. Those final 11 nodes correspond directly to the 11 modulation classes the model needs to identify. The very last layer uses a softmax activation function. Softmax takes the outputs from the previous layer and converts them into probabilities for each of the 11 classes. So the model tells you its best guess and how confident it is about each possibility.
Right, so the signal goes through this whole complex journey, feature extraction, condensing, refining, regularizing at each step, including that clever internal noise boost before it finally makes a probabilistic decision, a really sophisticated design. But okay, the proof is in the pudding, right? How did this novel architecture actually perform? How did it stack up against the existing state-of-the-art models?
The results are definitely compelling. For training, they use that 80-20 split of the radio-ML data. They use the Atom Optimizer, very standard, very effective for training deep models, and categorical cross-entropy as the loss measure. That's basically the error metric the model tries to minimize during training. And yeah, this was all done on high-performance GPUs and NVIDIA GeForce 1080 Ti, which just shows the kind of computational muscle needed for this research. They also use a smart technique called early stopping. It monitors performance on the validation set during training. If the validation performance stops improving for a while, it stops the training early. And crucially, it rolls back to the best model found during that run. This is another key way to prevent overfitting and ensure the model generalizes well. On the numbers. On the training data, over 90,000 samples, it achieved 70.60% accuracy with a loss of 0.7832. On the validation set, the best accuracy was 69.18% with a loss of 0.8206. Now here's a Lidl comparison. The researchers reran the competing models 1014 on the exact same dataset. Their validation loss was consistently above 0.84.
So this proposed model already shows a significant improvement in validation loss, which is a good sign.
Okay, so even before the final test, it's looking better on data it hasn't trained on, suggesting it's learning more effectively. But the real acid test is that separate test set performance, isn't it? How did it do there?
Exactly. The test set is the key benchmark. On that completely unseen data, the proposed system achieved a test accuracy of 68.946% with a loss of 0.8242. And this is where the innovation really shows. This figure clearly outperforms the recreated results from the other leading CNN models. 1013. Their best result on the same data set was 65.39%.
Wow, so a jump of over 3.5% in accuracy. That sounds significant in this field.
It really is. That kind of improvement across a wide range of SNRs can make a real difference in practical deployments faster, more reliable signal ID, fewer mistakes, more efficient spectrum use. And what's fascinating is that this superior performance, and also the fact it converges faster, it reaches peak performance in fewer training cycles, like 40 to 45 epochs, seems largely down to those regularization methods, especially the Gaussian noise and dropout layers. You can see this in the performance graphs in the paper, where the loss drops quickly and accuracy climbs steadily.
So that Gaussian noise layer, the counterintuitive one, along with dropout, isn't just a gimmick. It's actually a core reason for the faster learning and better results. Can you unpack the impact of that Gaussian noise layer a bit more? How does adding noise actually help so much?
Sure, it's quite profound, really. First, it strongly mitigates overfitting. By injecting that bit of randomness during training, it prevents the model from just memorizing the training data, noise and all. It forces it to learn more general, robust features that aren't thrown off by small, irrelevant input variations. Second, it helps the model generalize data efficiently. It learns broader patterns, not just specific examples. This is vital because real-world signals always have variations. The noise layer makes the model more resilient, better able to classify diverse inputs it hasn't seen before. Third, it actively works to eliminate the memorization effect. Instead of just recalling training examples, the noise forces the model to learn the deeper underlying statistical relationships in the data. This leads to a more fundamental understanding, a smarter classifier. And finally, a big practical plus. It significantly improves the learning rate and convergence. The model just learns faster and finds a good solution more quickly. The paper emphasizes that Gaussian noise has the maximum impact of regularization in their setup, leading to that faster convergence with a new minimum loss. It really shows the power of smart regularization.
That's incredibly insightful. It's like that bit of internal stress during training forces the model to become tougher, more discerning, smarter overall. But even with these great improvements, no system's perfect, right? Especially with tricky radio signals. How does the model do when you break down its performance by specific modulation types and across different noise levels? What does the confusion matrix tell us?
Yeah, the confusion matrix is great for diagnostics. Looking at the overall matrix across all SNRs, figure 5, you see some expected confusions. For instance, WBFM gets mixed up with AMD-CSB sometimes, and vice versa. Their characteristics can look similar at certain noise levels. There's also some notable misclassification among BPSK, CPFSK, and GFSK. These digital types can be tricky to perfectly separate, especially when noisy. But when you look at the confusion matrices at different SNRs, the story becomes much clearer. At low SNR, like manic at 8 dB or negative 2 dB, yeah, the algorithm is confused. Misclassifications are all over the place. Noise just dominates. But as the SNR gets better, the really significant aspect observed is that the confusion matrix makes an almost perfect diagonal at high SNR values.
Meaning it's getting most predictions, right?
Exactly. High confidence, accurate classifications for the vast majority of signals when the signal is strong.
So even at the best SNR, say 18 dB, are there still lingering confusions, or is it pretty much perfect then?
Even at 18 dB, figure 6 pen, a very clear signal, the paper notes the algorithm is still a bit confused about the classification of WBFM and 8PSK. So while accuracy is super high overall, there are still these subtle nuances between certain pairs that remain challenging. It points to areas for maybe future refinement, perhaps needing even more sophisticated architectures or data processing for those specific edge cases. And the accuracy versus SNR plot really quantifies this overall trend. Accuracy climbs dramatically from 20.59% at Engerby 20 dB to an impressive 96.57% at 18 dB. That strong positive correlation is exactly what you want to see. That 96.57% at 18 dB is the peak accuracy reported for the base proposed model. But then they did some fine-tuning. By carefully adjusting the parameters, specifically the standard deviation of that Gaussian noise layer, they squeezed out even more performance. They found the highest accuracy of 97.24% was observed at 0.0001 standard deviation value and 18 dB SNR.
Wow.
Yeah, it just highlights how crucial careful parameter tuning is in deep learning. Small tweaks can yield measurable gains.
That's a serious level of accuracy, especially after tuning. So let's put it all together. How does this look in a final comparison table against the competitors? What's the bottom line?
The summary table, Table 2, really lays it out clearly. The proposed model nails a test accuracy of 68.94% overall, with that impressive 97.24% accuracy at 18 dB SNR after tuning. Now compare that directly to the others, all tested on the same data. The ANN model only managed 37.47% test accuracy and 51.91% at 18 dB. Big difference. VTCN2 got 62.59% test, 91.91% at 18 dB. The 7-layer CNN hit 63.04% test, 95.64% at 18 dB. Getting closer, the previous best CNN model scored 65.39% test, 94.89% test, 94.03% at 18 dB. So you can see the proposed architecture performs better than other models across the board. Higher accuracy overall and higher accuracy in good signal conditions. And importantly, the paper also mentions it has reduced complexity compared to the one proposed in 14. So potentially more efficient to run in the real world while giving better results. It really solidifies its claim as a novel and superior approach, pushing the state-of-the-art in automatic modulation classification.
This deep dive has certainly shone a light on just how fundamental automatic modulation classification is and the incredible leaps deep learning is enabling here. It's really clear this isn't just some niche tech thing. It's foundational to our connected world. We saw how those older manual methods were just too rigid, too reliant on human experts for today's dynamic wireless environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And the breakthrough with deep learning, especially this novel CNN, is just remarkable. That shift from handcrafting features to letting the network learn them automatically, total game changer. And you really can't overstate the impact of techniques like that Gaussian noise layer for boosting robustness, stopping overfitting, and making learning more efficient. That's clearly a huge part of why this model outperformed the rest. It's accurate, efficient, and resilient.
Hopefully this deep dive has given you a shortcut to understanding this complex but super important slice of wireless communication and AI. Maybe given you some aha moments and practical knowledge about the invisible world around us.
Indeed. And if AI can now classify these invisible radio signals with such high accuracy, really making sense of that unseen electromagnetic spectrum, well, it raises some big questions, doesn't it? What does this mean for the future of dynamic spectrum management, for making even more efficient use of our crowded airwaves? What are the cybersecurity implications being able to spot and categorize signals, maybe even malicious ones, in real time? And just fundamentally, how will this capability reshape how we understand and interact with the invisible digital landscape that's all around us every single day?
What stands out to you about how AI is shaping our wireless future?